So I want to discuss how you can go from interval notation to inequality notation because your state exam does inequality. So this is interval notation, -2, 5. And a lot of you understand that. That means you've got points in between -2 and 5. And we want to convert to inequality. So we've got a less than or equal to or greater than equal to. So the way you would do it is you would bring this down. You know, X is in the middle. And then you have to decide which sign to use, this one or this one. Well, you're going to use the ones with the equal signs if these are solid dots. Now, how do I know which one of these? Well, you think about the relationship. X is between these two. So that means -2 is the smaller, 5 is the bigger. X falls in between. So remember I saying about the mouth. If you think of the inequality having a mouth right there, the mouth is always pointing towards the bigger number. So if you look at the relationship between -2 and X is greater than -2. So the mouth is going towards the X. If you're looking at the relationship between X and 5, 5 is bigger. So it's -2 is less than equal to X, less than equal to 5. And if you have two endpoints, the inequality sign will always be this, if you're good at memorizing. Now let's see what that would look like if you graphed it. So you could have different graphs. I drew one just from -2 to 5. So if I label my points, this would be 5, 4, -2, 0. So if I'm talking about domain, I'd be going from -2 to 5. So this would be my domain. If I'm talking about range, we're going from what? 0 to 4. So again, I would put 0 here, 4 here, and I would use my less than or equal. Remember, this is going towards the bigger number. This is going towards the bigger number. I think if you think about that mouth thing, it'll help you if you don't get confused. Now, let's look at another one. Let's look at this. So if I had a 3 and I'm going down, if you wrote it in interval notation, it would be 3 to infinity. How do I write it in inequality? Well, when you have one endpoint, you're only going to have one number. So you know you're talking about a relationship between X and 3. So then it's just a matter of which one of these signs we're going to use. So you ask yourself, if you're going forever down, remember that means you're going forever right. So are all of those X's bigger than 3? Yes, because they're to the right of 3. So the mouth is at the bigger number. So X is greater than equal to 3. Now, if we were talking about range, we're starting at the bottom and going to our top point. Our top point is 0. So in interval notation, it's -infinity to 0. Now, how do we write that in inequality? Again, we'll write the one endpoint, we write the y, and then we just figure out what sign. And in this case, 0 is higher than all these numbers. So if you think of the mouth eating the bigger number, 0 is bigger than the y, so you know to write it that way. So let's try this one. I'd always label my endpoint. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's -4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. -4. And what's this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, right away we have two endpoints. So in an interval notation, we would go from -4 to 4. And they're solid dots, so that should be bracket. But your state exam is not going to write it that way. It's going to do inequality. So remember, we're going to do -4. We're going to put 4. X is between. Now ask yourself, what's the relationship? This is the furthest left, so that means X is bigger than that. The sign, think of the mouth, goes to the bigger number. It's eating the bigger number. I don't know if you remember the old Pac-Man where it would go around and eat. Now, Is x bigger than 4? No, because the x's are to the left of that 4. So again, it's going to the bigger number. That's domain. Now range, we're going from -4 to what? 1. So again, in interval notation, it would be -4 to 1. And in inequality, let's find one that just has one endpoint. Let's look at this one. So this endpoint is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the x, -5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -5. Okay, so we only have one endpoint. So when you only have one endpoint, if you're talking about domain, you know you're talking about x, and you know you're talking about -5. Now you just got to decide what's the relationship of the two. Well, all of these x's are to the right of -5. So which one's smaller? -5, because these are moving. The further right you go, the bigger you get. So remember, the mouth is in the bigger number. The mouth is to the bigger number. So is -5 the bigger number? No. So if you wrote it that way, it would be incorrect. Which is the bigger number? The x's. So you don't want to write it that way. You want to write what? So you see how you can tell if you did wrong. I wrote it this way. I'm saying the mouth is to the bigger number. Well, when I look at here, is -5 bigger than all these x's? No. So I know I did it wrong. And I'm going to ask myself, if I turn it around, is x bigger than those numbers? Yes. Now what would range be? We've got the same. So we've got y and we've got -5. Again, this is going up from -5. So which is bigger? The y or the -5? The y is bigger. So you're going to put the mouth going to that. Alright, let's see if we got one more where well, all the rest of these have endpoints. So we'll just do one more with endpoints. So if I have this endpoint is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -6, 0. And this one's 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to call that -5. Slightly off of -5, but 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So left to right, we're going from -6 to 2. Again, an interval. Those should be brackets. But in inequality, we'll put the x in between, and it'll be like that. Now the range, so that was domain. Range is we're going from -5, but are we going to 0? No, not up and down. So we got to come up here and find out what's our highest point from a y standpoint. And our highest point is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going from -5 to 5. So in interval notation, it would be this. And in inequality, so let's recap how we do inequality notation. If you have two endpoints, you pick the furthest left and the right, you fill in, and you're always going to use the less than or equal signs between. And think about it as the mouth of the inequality sign eats the larger number. The range, you're going to pick the lowest to the highest point, fill in. And again, you'll always have these signs, less than or equal, between them. And you can remember to check yourself because the mouth is going to eat the larger numbers. Now, when you have one endpoint, so let's say you have a farthest left point, so the graph is right of that point. It will always be this, fill in your point. And this is greater than equal because these points will be right of that point, so they'll be greater. If your point is to the right, your graph is left, then x is going to be less than equal. And you can remember because the mouth eats the larger number. Now in the range, the lowest point, so the graph's above, it'll be y greater than equal to that point because that's bigger than this point. And here, if the graph's below the point, the y's will be less than equal to that point because the mouth eats the bigger numbers. And then if you have no endpoints and arrows, you'll just have the big R for domain or range, or sometimes on a standardized test they'll say all real numbers.